Hello guys, ghouls and gals, and welcome back to the archives. I'm your host, Nick Nightmare, and today we'll be diving back into the realm of Dead by Daylight and into the stories of two survivors, an abused wannabe leader and a small town country singer. These are the stories of Dwight Fairfield and Kate Denson. Let's start with the first ever survivor to be introduced into the game, Dwight Fairfield. Dwight was a scrawny and geeky kid throughout high school, and the most fitting description would be perfectly below average. He tried out for sports but would never make the cut. His grades were below average, and Dwight was considered a laughingstock by his peers. And unfortunately, such misfortunes would follow him to the business world, as he got the position of a story hook supervisor within an advertisement company. A made-up position that placed him under the verbal abuse of a man named Lazar. A narcissistic man who was convinced he was a visionary, convinced he had coined the term story hook, despite the term not only existing in multiple high school textbooks, but also being used incorrectly by Lazar himself, referring to an ad with a story. Truly an inspiration to us all. Lazar slams his hand down on Dwight's desk, furious. Max hadn't worked out. He was a weak male who Lazar wanted to crush. He slams his hand down on Dwight's desk again, shouting, "I need you to be bolder than him, Dwitch. I need you to get the buzz out there that we're the best company in the business." Dwight was sent reeling, thinking to himself, did he just call me Dwitch? Dwight still wasn't completely sure what he was supposed to be doing as a story hook supervisor, but he needed the job. He couldn't bring himself to go back to dressing up for kids' birthday parties. Kids could be so cruel after all. Lazar leaves Dwight, but not before placing down a test in front of him. An intelligence test, explains Rose, the manager who had brought Dwight on, and a good friend of his. Lazar wants to make sure he's the smartest in the company. My best advice? Flunk it. Dwight smiled. He could do that. Lazar continues to promote his story hook advertising, trying so hard to be different just for the sake of being different, pretending to coin a term used in high school English for his new book. An autobiography, guaranteed bestseller highlighting Lazar's theory on creativity, despite the fact that all he's done is burn through millions in company funds. Rose informs Dwight he needs to meet up with Lazar's ghostwriter for an interview, and make sure to shower praises about our naked emperor for his autobiography. Later, Dwight finds Rose is not her usual jolly self, her cheeks stained with tears and her eyes puffy from crying. She had been embarrassed by Lazar during a meeting for not going along with his teasing. He had begun making fun of their sound designer's speech impediment, mimicking his stuttering and attempting to get Rose to go along with it, to which she refused. Rose just sighs and suggests Dwight record all meetings with the naked emperor for the yearly roast. Dwight was stunned. Yearly roast? How long has Peak 22 existed? Rose informed him they had been open for 5 years, and yet nothing but Lazar's biography and theory on creativity to show for it. Dwight's been given the task to create fake profiles in order to shower Lazar with praise. It's the easiest job he's ever had, and he is desperate not to lose it. But as he's creating a new profile, he hears loud shouting coming from Lazar's office, a verbal altercation between Lazar and his lawyer. The lawyer informs Lazar he can't trademark the term story hook, as it's a concept promoted in every high school English class. Lazar fires him on the spot, prompting the lawyer to threaten a lawsuit. Lazar doesn't care. He'll just settle. He always settles. It's not his money he's losing. His benefactors are basically eating out of his hands. As Rose tries to calm him down, Lazar screams at her to mind her own business. Dwight wants to help his friend, but he's making so much money for such little effort. Eventually his nerves get the best of him, and instead of standing up for Rose, he instead just runs to the bathroom. A few days later, Lazar finally reveals the title of his autobiography to the studio, The Brilliant Mind, Inc. It sounds like a bad joke, and the studio treats it as such, trying not to laugh directly at him. Dwight didn't even know how they were still in a job, as Peak 22 didn't have a single successful ad campaign under their belt. They had a few clients when Dwight had first joined, but Lazar wanting to write and direct the commercials himself led to the clients inevitably looking for a new production company to work with. As Dwight continues to suppress a laugh, Rose does what she can to feed his ego, clapping and shouting, "Amazing, paradigm-changing. How gracious of you to share the secrets of your success with the world." Everyone else picks up on the sarcasm except for Lazar, who instead turns his attention to Dwight, asking for his thoughts too. He just parrots Rose's response, making Lazar smile. It's not about ego, Dwight. It's about community and selflessness. Later, Lazar is infuriated by Rose's lack of success finding a publisher for the biography and begins screaming at her. In order to appease him, Rose suggests that they just self-publish instead. "You're right. You're absolutely right," he exclaims, amazed by this sudden revelation. "The publishing world isn't ready for my visionary ideas." Dwight just sighs, finding it hard to listen to Lazar's bullshit. The company is going nowhere fast, struggling to find clients and new recruits with all the rumors of abuse floating around them. Lazar, however, has come up with a new solution for recruitment. A story hook recruitment campaign to attract the best employees. Dwight doesn't even understand the purpose of such a campaign, not even sure if Peak 22 does anything but provide a narcissist with whatever he wants. Lazar has started spreading rumors about Rose. She's inconsolable, recognizing Lazar's pattern of behavior. He discredits, destroys, and demolishes an employee right before he fires them, spreading the rumor that is later used to fire the person. Dwight tries to console her, telling her she's exaggerating, but she shakes her head. Lazar is in trouble, as he just spent more money on a 1-minute ad campaign than a Hollywood blockbuster, and now he needs someone to take the fall. The last 3 women in his position had taken the fall in the past, and now it was her turn. Lazar's idea of equal opportunity. Dwight gets to see this for himself soon enough, as Lazar asks Rose to present the advantages of storyhook advertising during an all-hands meeting. He interrupts her on every slide that she had previously validated with him, before canceling the meeting and announcing that Rose has no idea what a storyhook is. Dwight knows he had seen the slides before, knows he had validated them before. But before he can even talk to Rose, she's fired and escorted out of Peak 22. His friend and a single mother is escorted out of the job she had worked so hard to keep. Lazar had set her up in order to discredit her. "Sorry, Dwight," Lazar boasts. "I know Rose was your manager, but I had to let her go. She wasn't aligned with our company values." Dwight wants to scream, wants to rip the ears off of his narcissistic head. What values? But despite his frustration, Dwight doesn't fight back, doesn't yell, doesn't even talk back. He just nods and silently prays that there's justice in the world. Dwight attends the yearly Lazar roast, listening in disbelief to the horror stories all of his former employees brought with them. They had all gathered with white Peak 22 shirts with their own stupid Lazar quotes scribbled down in marker on the front. One of them worked with Lazar at a different production company, where Lazar attempted to pitch his own web series about an alien computer that takes over the world and controls everyone using a simulated reality. No one could tell him he had just pitched the plot of a pre-existing blockbuster film. He attempted to coin the term simulated terror, believing he had basically invented cosmic horror. Dwight couldn't believe his ears, laughing so hard his chest hurt. Cosmic terror? Storyhook? Lazar was more delusional than he had once thought. A different member tells everyone the story of how he had been labeled a weak male for not cyberbullying a blogger who refused to use Lazar's made-up terms. He tells them all of a harmless drug he wishes he could sneak into Lazar's coffee, a minor hallucinogen that would just make him laugh like a donkey. Dwight was intrigued, approaching Max after the meeting. "Tell me more about this harmless drug." Max hands it to Dwight. "It'll make him giggle and laugh so hard he'll piss himself. Pour it in his coffee before his meeting and you'll have a story hook like no other for next year's roast." Dwight smiles triumphantly. Finally, a small piece of justice will be served. He asks his colleague to help distract Lazar, but she's skeptical. She thinks the prank is too risky and doesn't want to lose her job over this if it ended up hurting someone. Feeling like he was the leader he was always meant to be, he places his hand on her shoulder. "Nothing bad will happen, or my name isn't Dwight." The hallucinogen had backfired, instead causing Lazar to see terrible monsters and causing him to lash out. Peak 22 was finished. Although it isn't specified in this tome whether it was with Peak 22 or a different company, Dwight was later brought out to the woods on a company retreat, only to be abandoned in the middle of the night. He attempted to hike back to civilization, feeling like the ultimate laughingstock among his peers. But he never returned. And unfortunately for now, this is where Dwight's story ends. However, we do have our next survivor, Kate Denson. Kate had begun singing from a young age, seeing how happy it made those around her, and deciding from then on that was her new path in life. As soon as she was old enough to hold a guitar, she began to teach herself and was performing in front of large crowds in no time. Her mother began taking her all over the state of Pennsylvania to perform, then across the South, and even Nashville itself. Kate won competition after competition, talent show after talent show. But Kate didn't want to perform competitively. All she wanted was to make people forget the worries of the world for just a little bit. When she eventually came of age, she acquired her own beaten-up Chevy truck and was able to travel on her own, meeting fans, making friends, and performing wherever the road took her. For a while, she sang about the values she cared about, returning home frequently to not only help out her community, but to entertain the local children and to rediscover her muse. But eventually, with her growing size came her loss of inspiration. Her songs began to become more artificial, lost in a cycle of trying to please everyone but herself. She lost touch with her muse, so in order to reconnect with it, she returns to her favorite spot to write music. A small clearing in the forest, looking almost as if it had been punched out by some unnatural force. She sits and ponders what her mother had told her. Play one song for money and kill your muse. At the time, she had laughed off her mother's warning. She played songs for money and still had enough inspiration to spare. Now, though, she's no longer laughing, feeling more uninspired than she had ever felt in her life. She sat and began to peel away the layers of her mind until nothing was left but the great unknown. She strums at her guitar freely, but nothing comes to her. Nothing but a single melody. It's darker than anything she has ever written before, the uplifting tones being replaced by a dark melancholy. Anytime she clears her mind, the same melody returns to her. She wants it to stop, but it's the only thing on her mind, the only melody she can hear. This melody surely can't be her. Or maybe it is. Maybe she's lost herself. Maybe she's lost herself after killing her muse so long ago. She stops playing, closes her eyes, and begins to push her anxieties out of her mind, counting back down to 0. She tries to wait for inspiration to come to her, but it never does. Nothing but that ominous melody once again. The more she tries to strum anything else, the louder it plays in her head. She tries to force it out of her mind, but it's not coming from her mind, it's coming from a nearby cave. She shakes her head. She counts to 0. The tune fades, and she tries to reconnect with her real muse, the muse that regrets all those paid gigs that made her forget who she was. She closes her eyes once again, relaxing her entire body, silencing her thoughts, and counting down once again. 3 hours. 3 hours pass, and the only thing coming to her is that same melody. She wishes she could realign herself, regrets focusing her life's acts on acts and routines and money, She wants to reconnect to her inspiration, a man who wrote straight from his heart. But she's afraid that the guilt alone from all she's done may have crushed and killed her muse. Killed it to the point of no return, leaving this lonely, dark melody. She begins to count again before her attention is caught by a symbol on the ground in front of her, glowing and pulsing like the heartbeat of an ancient creature lost to time. She closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, the symbol is gone. The only thing left is the same dark tune. She screams in the lonely forest. She wants the melody out of her head, wants it to be gone, wants her muse back. Even when she's not playing the guitar, all she can focus on is the melody. She begins to wonder if she's being punished for squandering her talents, thinking back on someone who stated that today's shamans were artists, authors, and musicians. Was she being punished for not fulfilling her true purpose? Something begins calling to her. A voice coming from the cave, a vague memory of going through this cave before. Sigils line the walls, glowing ominously as she approaches a steep drop within the cave. Something is calling for her, reaching for her. Something begins reaching out to Kate, attempting to pull her in. Kate feels as if this has happened before, as if this isn't her first encounter with this strange creature. She sits in the forest, picking up her guitar and pondering. As curiosity gets the better of her, she begins to strum the melody again. The sky opens up as spider-like legs extend from the canopy. Kate attempts to fight back with some of the rocks around her, but its skin is hard and resilient, and as it begins to pull Kate up into the dark fog that shrouds the creature, it leaves no trace of Kate Denson. Nothing but an acoustic guitar and a scratch plate with the initials KD. And unfortunately, that is where Kate's story ends, and where my time is up, friends. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please feel free to like the video, subscribe, and comment down below. I would love to hear all of your thoughts about the story. And of course, I hope to see you all within the archives again soon. Goodbye for now.